Hey, you guys, how are you? Oh, wow, that's too much, Jen Lou. We need it back up. There we go. Hi, everyone. How are you? Happy Monday. I'm sorry I wasn't live last night. You know how life goes. And I'm sorry I was late tonight. My little chicky nuggy pup pie Esquire had a hard time going to sleep. So, Grammy got to do what Grammy got to do. So let me say hi to you guys. Hey, Jenny. That's so sweet of you to say. I appreciate that so much. And also, thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate it very, very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Hey, Neat Noodle. Hey, Irene. Irene. I can't read apparently. Hey, Ginger Snaps. How are ya? Hey, Ro. Hey, Rochelle. Good to see you. Hey, preschool granny. Welcome in. Welcome in. How's everybody doing tonight? Hey, I'm finally in a place that actually gets cold. No me gusta. Let me tell you. So they've changed the forecast, and we're supposed to get like 8 to 12 inches of snow. Bruh. Like, you couldn't take it easy on me, Texas, on my first winter back. Like, you couldn't just ease me into it. You had to just be like, too bad, so sad. It's cold. It's going to get colder. And good luck to you. Like, I don't care. Texas does not give a rat's fat kneecap. You don't need any time to get acclimated. We're not going to give you any time to get acclimated. It's not happening. So there you have it. I am cold. So I hope everybody who is anywhere where it is going to be cold, stay warm, stay safe. I don't know why people say that, stay safe. Like, what are you going to do, really? You're going to go out in the middle of a blizzard with the American flag and run around in your bathing suit? I don't know why I'm saying stay safe. Like, you guys are just going to be just wilding out and reckless. Oh, wow. 80 in Tucson. Wow. That is gorgeous weather. All right. So before we get started, let me you guys. Hey, Rachel Lee. I know you guys in the chat. Clearly, you're highly intelligent. You're hanging out with me. Hello. But yeah, people generally are not super smart. But before we get started, I just want to play you guys a really quick clip from our sponsor, just briefly, and then we'll get started on all the things. All right, here we
go. And Kai, when you're on Jen Lou's channel, what do you do with the like button?
Smash, smash, smash! Yeah.
Yeah. So give your girl a thumbs up on the stream. Do all the YouTubey things that helps. This is YouTube's. This is how the game is played. We're just playing by their rules, right? Okay. So tonight, who we're going to hear from is Jake's ex-wife. And the reason I want us to hear from her is because we've heard from George's ex-wife, Tabitha. And at the very end of Tabitha's direct testimony, she read the Facebook messages between she and Hannah Mae Rhoden. Hannah was messaging her the day that she ended up being murdered, which was April 21st into the 22nd. And so I can't get past the contents of that exchange between them in the private messages, because at that point nothing had happened. It's not like Tabitha's talking to somebody else and it's after the murders, right? And she's, talking about her suspicions that the Wagners may have done this. There's all that conversation is, which, they would never know how important that conversation was going to be to this case. But in the moment, that conversation was just two women who'd had a shared experience being with and married to the Wagner sons. That's it. That's all. And so, yeah, it's, um, oh, I guess the people upstairs are moving furniture. I was like, what is that noise? It's upstairs. Sorry about that. So anyway, there's no dramatics in that. There's, no ulterior motives behind the conversation between Tabitha and uh, um, Hannah. And so the reason I want you guys to hear from Jake's wife ex-wife, is because you will find that Angela's behavior, Rachel, they're coming to get you, Barbara. When I hear weird noises every time, that's what I always think. They're coming to get you, Barbara. Um, I hope it's not Lazarus. Oof. I do want to, I want you guys to hear that Angela's manipulation and control was not limited to just Tabitha and Hannah. Like, I kind of halfway expect Angela's attitude, and I think we're going to, we will definitely hear. I just can't remember all of the things that she said in some of the conversations and interviews with law enforcement, right? But, I feel like Angela would use the excuse that, she had to be that way with Hannah and with Tabitha because they just aren't very good mothers. And if she hadn't stepped in and taken the reins, God knows what would have happened to the children. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's an excuse that she would have used. Yet we're going to see and hear, we're not going to see it, but we're going to hear Beth testify that is just who Angela is as a person, that this was not an isolated incident. She wasn't controlling and interfering and took over the raising of the grandchildren because she had to. She chose to, she wanted to. So yeah. That's, I want to make sure though, hold on a second, that this is, yeah, okay. All right. So, whoops, I shouldn't have done that. Let me share the screen. Really? Hold on a minute. What are you doing over here, YouTube? Just playing games, making me click all around for no reason. All right, let me share the screen. And I'm hoping, I think we should be able to have closed captions. Yes, thank goodness. All right. Let me make this full screen. Oh, also, before I forget, hey, Shauna, good to see you. Before I forget, very, very important. I am working very, very diligently, very, very hard on the Sid and Nancy Something Else documentary that I want to show you guys. And hi, Shmita. And so that will be premiering January 10th. Oh, thank you, Shmita, for becoming a member. I appreciate that, babe. Thank you for supporting me in the channel. Appreciate it so much. All right. So without further ado, for real. But the documentary, just because of the content of the documentary, I'm going to put it all in there, everything. Hey, Violet. So it's not going to make it past the tubes. I know it's not, it's not, it's, got everything in it that the YouTubes is like, we don't like that. So it'll be on Patreon. I have only one tier membership. It is $5 a month. I'm going to be much more active over there in 2025. So you will get your money's worth. I promise. All right. Here, did I add it to the stream? No. Yeah, I did. All right, here we go.
Angela, Jake, George. Angela, Jake, George, to my memory, were in the same room with me. They discussed it with me, how they hadn't been able to find housing in Missouri, and that basically we needed to go back to Ohio because there was somewhere to stay, which we'd been in a hotel room for several days now, and basically they were asking me if I was okay with going back to Ohio.
Okay. And how did you decide that?
I was unhappy about it because Jake had...
Hold on a minute. This is not the one that I wanted. Hold on a minute. Let me see what's happening over here. Mac, nobody asked for your opinion, buddy. Well, I'm going to stick with this one, and then I'll go back and find the other parts because she testifies for quite some time. So I'll go back and find the other parts I want to play because I want you guys to hear about their wedding night because that was super messed up. All right, here we go. Sorry about that. Okay, here.
And basically promised me we were never going back to Ohio because of the news story, but after being in the hotel for days on end, I thought anything might be better, and so I said, okay.
Okay. And so did you then travel back to Ohio?
Yes, we did.
Okay. At that time, Billy was already at the Flying W. He did not travel back with you from Missouri to Ohio, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. When you got back to Ohio, where did you go? Where did you stay?
So when we got back to Ohio, we stayed in Angela Wagner's father's house, or that's what even was next door to Rita Newcomb's house.
Okay. And who all was staying in that home?
Angela, George, Jake, Sophia, and Wolvine, and myself.
Okay. During the time that you were there, did Billy ever stay at that location?
I think he spent the night once, maybe twice.
Okay. So
Now, I will say that the family dynamics after the murders seem to have changed a little bit. I know that Billy Wagner doesn't really seem to stay in the home. There is a great amount of not physical distance, but I mean, because he's only staying at his mom's house. Billy is. I mean, it's not like, they're, miles. I mean, maybe they are miles and miles apart, but it's not like states or anything. But it seemed like something between Angela and Billy shifted and changed after the murders. After they moved because they were all living in the same home in Alaska. And when they moved back to Ohio, they were no longer living in the same home. And I can't quite honestly remember if they really talk about it in George's trial. I don't think that they do a whole lot because I feel like if they did, I would remember that. But that doesn't, I mean, just because I think I would remember doesn't mean I would actually remember. So I just always thought that that was interesting. It seems that there was some kind of weird divide between Angela and Billy where they had sort of been on the same page this whole time. And it's just weird to me that Billy, that truthfully, either one of them would have trusted the other to be alone like that. Does that make sense? I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain. I'm having a hard time with words today, apparently, which is actually not all that, you guys have been here. You're familiar with my brand. Sometimes I have like it's hard for me to express the thoughts correctly. So I'm going to be quiet and maybe it will come to me while I listen. All right, here we go.
So he may have spent the night a few times, but by and large, he's not living there. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And did you have an understanding of where he was living during that time?
I had been told he was at the Flying W.
Also, hey, Lariah, good to see you. And also, hey, Happy Chick. Good to see you too, babe.
And when you lived there, did you have a car while you were there?
I did not have a car there. I sold it. And
did you apply for a driver's license?
I did switch my Alaska to Ohio.
Okay. And when you were making application for your driver's license, you later learned they had provided you an incorrect address to provide on that application?
Yes.
And how did
Well, I'm gonna sustain that, Mr. Son. How she found these things out, I guess.
How did you learn that that was an incorrect address?
So when I went to the driver's license office, they gave me the form to fill out, and I was filling it out. I asked Jake what was the home address. He told me an address. I wrote it down, and I came home, looked at the house. That was not the house address. So that was how I learned.
So then not hearsay, Mr. Defense Attorney man. Not hearsay. She learned it through her own knowledge. Jackass.
And
Also, I should point out for anybody that is new to this case that Elizabeth, but she goes by Beth, Beth came from an incredibly sheltered life, okay? And when she moved to Alaska, she was living in Alaska, if I'm not mistaken, with a pastor and his family. She was living, well, a pastor's family is the way I should say, 'cause it's not like she was living with the pastor and then his family as well. She was living with the pastor's family. That's how I should put it, because that sounds a little different. Neat Noodle, it's so good to see you, babe. It's always good to see you, Neat. You know that. So she's incredibly sheltered. She Irene, well, he has a drunk ass. So she's naive. She's, she lived in Alaska. It's not like incredibly populated. Okay. Everybody kind of knows each other. And then she meets the Devil's Rejects and falls in love with Jake, marries him. And now she's, stuck with Otis and the other rest of the family that I can't think of off the top of my head right now. You know who, if you've seen the movie, you know the reference I'm making, but that she's stuck with the Devil's Rejects as a family. And so, poor thing, she goes to do something really simple and legal, because typically you're required, you have like 30 days to change your address on your driver's license. Okay. So here she goes trying to do the legal thing. And she says, hey, what's our address? Because they haven't been there, but a hot minute, right? She's never lived there, doesn't know the address. So she asks Jake, and Jake gives her an address. And then she goes back to the house, and boom, it's not even the right address. So, it's already coming up. It's already an issue, like red flags and lies already. Oh no, don't be hurt and pouting. Come on, I love you. All right, here we go. And I got a notification, but I'm not really sure what it was. Maybe it'll come up in a second. I heard the thing, but I didn't get to see it. All right, here we go.
When you moved into that home, Did you guys,
Oh, wait, one last thing I forgot to tell you guys. Also, the friendship door between Beth and George never even got opened. It was always closed. He was not a fan. He was big mad that Jake hooked up. Like I guess it would have been fine if they were just hooking up and, having a little afternoon delight, but wifing her up was a step too far, and George was big mad. All right, here we go.
paint the house or do anything to it?
Yes, so almost immediately we started to paint the house and the inside, kitchen red, living room brown, one room pink, one room blue, and I don't remember the third room.
Okay. And if you can tell us, the room that was painted pink, if I walk in that house and turn to the right, that takes you down a hallway, correct?
Correct.
And can you tell us where would the room that was painted pink be?
So if you walk in the front door, turn to the right, go down the hallway, there will be 2 bedrooms, one on the right, one on the left. It was the one on the left.
Okay. And where was the blue room?
The blue room was on right.
Okay. And then you said there was a third room. Where was that located in relation?
So on the hallway, there's 2 bedrooms at the end, pink, blue, and then the other one would be here. So closer to the living room.
Okay. Prior to getting to the end of the
Prior
hallway.
to getting to the end of the hallway.
And can you tell us who slept in the pink room?
So I was sleeping in the pink room, Jake was sleeping in the pink room. Sophia sometimes slept in the pink room.
And who slept in the blue room?
Normally, Bovine and Angela.
And who slept in the other room?
George.
And can you tell us, was there a reason they painted one room pink and one room blue?
All right, I'm trying her out at 1.5. If it's too fast, you guys let me know, and I'll put it down to 1.25. Yes, Lariah, I forgot. And I remember during the trial how much people commented about the amount of times that Miss Canepa said. In fact, I remember one time there was a joke in the chat saying we should drink every time she said the word and I said I still need to use my liver. So it was a lot. Bless her heart.
So they would say the reason for painting the one room pink and the other blue was that if there was ever an inquiry made into the children's well-being, they would say the pink room was Sophia's personal room and the blue room was Bovine's personal room.
So lies.
And that was something that was really discussed in your presence?
Yes.
It's a little too fast for me.
And you indicated that sometimes Sophia slept in the same room as where you slept, in that pink room. Where would she sleep if she did not sleep in that room?
So when Jake was over the road, Sophia would sleep with Angela in the blue room.
Okay. You said when Jake was over the road. Can you tell me about that? Did Jake and George get jobs?
They did. They started working for R&L, driving, trucking over the road.
Thank you, Lariah, for being a member
And can you tell us when they were?
Excuse me, Miss Canepa. Thank you, Lariah, for being a member for 4 months. I appreciate that very, very much. Thank you for supporting me in the channel. I really do appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Let me rewind it just a little bit. So now you'll notice the question was, first of all, why were the rooms painted pink and blue? And it was because if anybody ever came over to look into the welfare of the children, they could just say that the blue room was for George and Tabitha's son, and that the pink room was for Jake and Hannah's daughter. That was their personal room. But you also notice that the only time that Jake and Hannah's daughter was allowed to sleep in that pink room was when Jake was home. If Jake was truck driving, She stayed with Angela. This is going to be a theme, and she's going to get into it about why that is. All right, here we go.
They did. They started working for R&L, driving, trucking over the road.
And can you tell us when they were doing that work, what would their typical schedule be?
They would be gone most of the week and come home on the weekends, if I remember correctly.
Okay. So they would be gone several days and then home for 2, is that correct? Okay. And so when Jake was home on the weekends, then who would sleep in that room?
When Jake was home on the weekends, he always made sure that Sophia was sleeping in the pink room with himself and I.
Would you guys all be in one bed, or describe to me what the sleeping arrangements would be?
Sophia had a little bed in the corner, but Jake always made sure he was sleeping in the bed with us.
And was there a typical sleeping arrangement in that bed then, at the times when she was in the bed with you? Like, where would she be in relation to you, the two of you?
It depended. Sometimes he would put her between us, and other times he would put her on one side of him and I on the other.
When George was home on the weekends, first of all, did they have the same schedule?
And George and Jake?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
as far as I knew.
Okay. And were you aware of whether they drove in the same truck?
It was my understanding they drove in the same truck, and that was my experience.
In fact, one time you actually accompanied them, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And was that just one time?
I think it was just 1 week.
Okay. And when George was home on the weekends, would Bullvine sleep with him, or would he still sleep with Angela?
I think he was still sleeping with Angela most of the time.
Okay. During this time, were you still interested in having your own place with Jake and Sophia?
Yes, very much so.
And can you describe to us the family dynamics when you were living there with them, between Jake and George and Angela?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Okay. How do they interact with each other? How were decisions made? All that.
Okay, so usually interactions were strained. As far as I remember, they were usually highly stressed and emotional, angry. Again, the shouting continued. Decisions were typically made as a group, so they would discuss what they were going to do, come to a decision, and then that's what everybody would do. They would make group decisions.
Okay. And can you tell us about those discussions, where they would occur, how they would occur?
Usually they would happen in the kitchen. I wasn't usually asked to join them. I just remember that I would hear people discussing things in the kitchen, and because it was so loud, I would hear people talking about what they're going to do, what their plans were, how they were going to answer certain questions if people asked them, how they were going to use their finances, all that in the kitchen.
Okay. So those were the general topics that you would hear them discussing.
They would talk about finances, how they would answer media questions, or I think at that point they were mentioning BCI questions or police questions about the children or about their clothes or shoes, or inquiries about the children, things like that, yeah.
Okay. And can you tell us what discussions did you hear about shoes?
I mostly remember them talking about tennis shoes and saying something about, like, somebody thought Angela had bought tennis shoes from Walmart, but that was ridiculous because they wore boots. And they kind of like impressed that on me multiple times. Like, do you think we would buy tennis shoes or boots? Because we wear boots. And they mentioned it multiple times.
Mentioned it multiple times to you?
To me specifically.
Okay. Can you tell us if they ever talked about any other types of questions that BCI might ask them, or information or evidence?
Sorry. Leading here, is that?
Your Honor, we had questions more specific.
I asked her if there's anything else discussed.
Oh.
Not leading. I
All
didn't
right.
suggest her what was
And so
discussed.
that's a yes or no question. Correct? You're asking, was anything else discussed?
Yes.
Yes, there were any things discussed.
Oh, wait a minute, that's the answer to your question, so we'll see if there's another question.
Okay. What other things were discussed?
I remember talking about a pocket knife or some kind of knife that they said there was some kind of like blood on it, and that
Sustained. I'm not sure. She's using the
Those are all-
pronoun he.
Okay. Who was present for those discussions, or that discussion?
I remember George and Jake. Not sure whether Angela was there that time.
Okay. And what were they saying about a knife?
Just that it had some kind of blood on it, and that it was because Billy would like pick at his skin or something like that.
Okay. Was there ever a time where you were showed a picture of a person holding a gun?
Yes.
Can you tell us where you were when that happened?
I was in the kitchen of the Flying W. I don't remember who showed me the photo, but I was showed a picture of a person holding a gun, and I was asked something to the effect of, what do you think this looks like? I said that looks like Jake's hand, and then everybody like kind of was like, no, that doesn't look like Jake's hand. And they basically informed me that I couldn't say things like that, and had me loudly.
I will ask her that question when she's finished telling us what was said. Who was present for this?
The kitchen of the Flying W, there was Frederica, Angela, George, Jake. I don't remember if the other children were present.
And do you remember Frederica?
I'll overrule the objection.
Thank you, Your Honor. You remember Frederica, Angela, Jake, and George being present?
Yes.
They were at the kitchen table or around the kitchen?
And yeah, the kitchen by the big old table.
Okay. And they told you that you couldn't be saying things like that? Okay. And did they tell you why you couldn't say things like
They
that?
said they were afraid BCI was listening, and that I needed to learn how to answer questions better, so that if the media or BCI asked me, that I wouldn't say things like that.
And did they have you do anything to kind of correct what you blurted out?
Yes, they had me loudly say something about how I had never seen anything like that before, something to that effect.
And can you tell us, did you ever hear them talking about, well, I guess I should ask you this. You were aware that BCI was engaging them from time to time during the time that you were living there, correct?
Towards the end of my stay with them, I started hearing that BCI had come by, or that, you know, I had to be real careful not to go outside much, because what if the police or BCI saw me, kind of thing. So I was becoming aware of it.
And did you ever hear any of them discussing law enforcement or other individuals that they wanted to harm?
Yes.
Well, I'm going to allow that question. The answer to that was yes, but it might go smoother if we, in each case, before we got into what was said and so forth, it was determined the place, time, and who was there in advance of asking, and then trying to bring in later about who was there. So I'm going to allow that answer yes, before we get into any detail. We're not setting them before the questions last set.
Okay. And what was your answer to that question? Did you hear any of them ever say anything about BCI or other individuals if they, regarding any threats?
Yes, so there was a time when I was...
The answer to that is yes, but what I said was, before we get into any details, we're going to have to framework about where, when it occurred, and who was there.
Was this on one occasion or more than one occasion?
More than one occasion, one stands out in memory.
Okay. And where were you for the one that stands out in your memory?
I was in the house next to Rita's house in the living room, and George and Jake were loudly discussing things they would do if various law enforcement people were in their grasp. So, for example, Ryan or what's the name? Oh.
Objection to what?
I'm sorry. I know that is petty, but God, I mean, like this kind of, they know what's coming in. Okay. They know what kind of questions that Miss Canepa is going to be asking Jake's ex-wife, Beth, on the stand right now. Okay. And also, hey, Sunday Doodles, and hey to, who knew? I think, is that the right? Yeah, who knew? I thought so. Okay. Welcome in. Have a great time at work. I hope I can be a source of entertainment on your way while you're on your way to work, while you're on your way in. But here's the deal, okay? There's depositions before a criminal trial, okay? Not every witness is deposed, but you can bet that the main witnesses are going to be deposed. And not only that, but I would suspect that there's a police interrogation, some sort of law enforcement interrogation that has been videoed with Beth, who's on the stand right now, okay? The defense knows what kind of questions are going to be asked. And when she's like, objection to what? Like, she's had it because they've been doing this all throughout Beth's testimony. I understand why. Because it's their job, and Beth has some really damning evidence and they don't want it to come in. I get it. But maybe I don't remember there being a rule against speaking objections, so I don't know what the issue is here. It's just annoying, and it's just disjointing. And I don't appreciate it. I'm not a fan.
So the objection would be overruled.
And it was overruled any damn way. Exactly, Irene. She knows it. They're doing. This is part of the deal when you're a defense attorney. You have to raise objections, and it's for a couple of reasons, right? It's not just because, obviously you're not wanting certain evidence to come in or certain testimony to come in, right? That's part of it. But the other part is to mess up the flow and to get the witness flustered. And Beth, bless her little heart, she is a fragile little thing. I mean, can you imagine going from living in a home with your family, moving to Alaska, and your home environment is a pastor's family, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe what she did was she worked in the nursery at the church, so, and then you meet, the devil's rejects, and and you find out that they're in the middle, all of this stuff is going on, that they're being accused of murdering an entire family. And there were children in the home, and they're scaring you because they're trying to keep you out of, you got to be careful where you go and can't be alone. And I don't want you going outside because of law enforcement, Then you start to worry, oh my gosh, what if these people did do it? At first you're like, well, this is kind of odd, I can't, and they know that she's fragile, and yet they're just trying to get her, flustered. It's rude.
So you indicated that one time in particular stood out to you. You were in the house next to Rita's house, in the house you were living.
Yes.
With the Wagners. And I believe you indicated George and Jake were loudly discussing what?
They were loudly discussing creating some kind of electric weapon that they would use to harm Mike Devine, Ryan, not Mark DeWine, Mike DeWine, Ryan, and various other people who were like police or law enforcement that they were annoyed by.
Okay.
So let's just unpack this last thing that she just testified to. So not only, right, are they accused, she's come from this really sheltered environment. They move her to Ohio, and now they're watching, now law enforcement is watching them. Okay. There were some rumors swirling around the family when they were in Alaska too. They didn't just, get over to Alaska and everything was, sunshine, rainbows, and lollipops. Okay. But it, definitely the scrutiny was not as harsh in Alaska as it was, in Ohio. Right. But now they're being accused of murdering an entire family, 8 people. Right. And now they're talking about the things that they want to do to law enforcement. Right. So, I mean, imagine being in Beth Ann's shoes, you're thinking, geez, if they're talking about doing this to law enforcement, then they probably did do this to the family. I mean, you know what I mean? Because who has conversations like that?
And were both George and Jake saying they would do these things? Okay.
Like, it takes a whole lot.
Was there ever a
Excuse me,
time?
Miss Canepa. It takes like a whole lot to get your girl here to clutch her pearls. Okay. Like, you really got to try. But I would imagine that if even me, okay, if I were in that household, like, I do think I might be actually a little scared. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna front. I do think I would be a little terrified and weirded out and trying to find a way to sneak out and get the heck away from there as fast as I could.
Where they were discussing what they would do if one or more of them got arrested.
Well, that's yes or no, and then we get into this idea about setting the framework about where, when, who. So that's a yes or no.
Yes.
And do you recall if that happened on more than one occasion or just one occasion?
May I have a moment? I'm very nervous.
Sure.
Look what they've done to her. And understand too
I'm so
that,
sorry, my brain blinked. Would you
That's
repeat the
okay.
question?
Yes.
see, look at her, and think about it like this. This trial happened in 2022. All the events that she's talking about happened in 2016, 2017, 2018. I think 2018 for her. 2018. She'd been out of that house and away from those people, and they were all in jail. They weren't going to get out. They weren't going to get bail or anything like that. And look at how afraid of them she is. Poor thing.
And I don't know how long we've been going either. I don't know if it's appropriate for break or not. I honestly don't remember when we started, John, but let me ask the question. Was there ever a time when, well, I guess you already answered yes, that there was discussion about what they would do if one or more of them got arrested?
Yes.
Was that on more than one occasion or one occasion?
It was an ongoing conversation that would happen periodically. It happened almost every day, I want to say.
Okay. And who involved in those discussions?
Depending on who was there, Angela, George, Jake, Billy, Rita sometimes. I feel like Chris was even there a couple times.
Rita.
Discuss, different scenarios, like, well, George.
Remember Rita? Rita who got up in front of the judge on last Friday and said that she felt so sorry for all the trouble that she caused as part of this. Yeah, that Rita. That's why I got nothing for her either. Rita.
They were arrested. Well, who would take custody or who would manage the finances? Or if Angela and Jake were arrested, who would take care of the children? And if they were all arrested, would Frederica take care of the children? So it was an ongoing conversation that happened periodically, and they would discuss different scenarios based off of who might be arrested.
Okay. And was there any discussion about any plans to get out of incarceration?
Yes.
And what were those discussions?
Again, who's involved in the discussion, where and when?
Did those discussions occur one time or more than one time?
More than one time.
Okay. And who was involved in those discussions?
Give me a moment to think.
Yeah.
I remember George, Jake, Angela, and at one point, Chris. I have the feeling that Billy was nearby within hearing.
Okay.
Let me just also say
And
this.
what was discussed?
Excuse me, Miss Canepa, I don't want to interrupt you. But also, you know what I want to know, what I'm really curious about, and I'm going to see if I can find it, because I'm sure it's there somewhere. I'm sure if I look hard enough, I'll find it. I want to know what the relationship between Rita and Frederica is. I want to know if Rita and Frederica go back as far, like forever. You know what I'm saying? Like if they were friends, and if Rita and Frederica put Angela and Billy together. That's what I want to know. Okay, so who knew asks, and this is an important question, and I should have started with this. Why was it they moved back from Alaska? Okay, so they sold the property where the guns were hidden, okay? And the new owners of that property called them in Alaska and were like, hey, you know that business that you thought you left behind over here in Ohio? Well, guess what? Law enforcement has been at the property. They're doing all the things. Just thought I'd let you know. And that's why they came back. Because they knew that the heat was on.
You can answer.
There was discussion about creating a bulletproof bulldozer, which could be driven through the walls of a enclosure, such as a prison, with which to, break people out of jail.
Going back to your living with the Wagners at that location, in the home next to Rita Newcomb's home. Can you tell us
Hold on a
time
minute.
you were there?
Once again, they lived in the home next to Rita. Rita, who decided to come forward because it was the Christian thing to do after everybody had been arrested. That Rita. Yeah, Rita.
Did Angela ever have conversations with you about the sexual relations you were having with Jake?
Yes.
And here we
Can
go.
you remember what
It's about to get super uncomfortable, everybody. So here's your one and only trigger warning, because look, when somebody's testifying about conversations that they had with the Devil's Rejects, I mean, it is what it is. So there you go. It's about to get super uncomfortable.
what specifically she discussed with you?
So I remember her asking if Jake and I were trying to have a child, and telling me that it wasn't a good time for Sophia, for he and I to have a child. And I remember her asking if Jake and I had sexual relations with Sophia in the room. And I remember her suggesting that that was inappropriate. And I remember Jake and I having that discussion, and I remember telling him that I did not think it was appropriate and that he did not listen.
So you basically agreed that it was
I agreed.
appropriate.
Yes.
And you expressed it.
Yes.
And when your husband was home, at the time husband, Sophia was in the room with you, correct?
Yes, normally.
Can you tell us, while you were living with the Wagners, was there ever information that they had given you about a person by the name of Tabitha Wagner? Or Tabitha?
Yes, I remember hearing about her after I moved to Ohio with them.
Okay. And what kinds of things were you told about Tabitha?
Here we go.
I'm going to sustain that.
Okay. Who told you things about Tabitha?
Angela told me things about Tabitha.
Okay. Did anybody else, did Jake or George ever tell you anything about Tabitha?
I don't remember them explicitly telling me things about Tabitha, but I do remember them affirming things that Angela would say about Tabitha.
Okay.
I don't know where the closed
And
captioning
what
got
things
Taco Bell.
Did Angela tell you about Tabitha?
I'm going to argue the relevance of that and its admissibility here.
I mean, I'm assuming he doesn't want me to say that.
I'm sorry.
I'm assuming they want us to approach. I assume on that.
Yeah. Let's approach for the 11 billionth time. Look at, what's George doing? What's he doodling over there? Oh, raised an eyebrow, huh? Perhaps he's doing a caricature. Seems very intense, whatever it is that he's drawing and doing over there. Oh, I'll just go ahead and scooch this.
Can you tell us, Ms. Armour, when you were living in that home with Angela, Jake, George, and the two children, did Angela ever accuse you of things regarding either one of the children?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell us what was the first thing that she accused you of?
If I remember, it was food poisoning. She accused me of having intentionally food poisoned the children.
And did she tell you that, or did she tell somebody else that? Objection?
Well, I'm going to let her answer that. We need
Yeah, let her answer it. Let her answer it.
It was both. She mentioned it herself at one point, but Jake was the one that brought it to my attention that she suspected me of having food poisoned children, which she then later mentioned in the kitchen in front of me.
Okay. And do you recall her accusing you?
Okay, so Irene says, Rachel Lee, they were dumb criminals, and also Jake and George were cosplaying some movie. I don't remember the name. I do. Jake even styled his hair like the lead character, as if he was 14 years old. They were cosplaying the Boondock Saints. That's the movie they were cosplaying, which makes me so upset because those are good movies. Highly recommend.
And when you said food poisoned, who did you allegedly food poison?
She alleged that I food poisoned Bovine and Sophia because she said that they had been having diarrhea or throwing up or something like that, which nobody else saw.
Okay. And had you prepared food for them, or how did that come to be that you were the one that was the culprit?
So I prepared a meal that was tacos, and everyone really liked it. And then in the next couple of days, she said that I had food poisoned people with those tacos.
Okay.
Children were not the only ones who ate it.
And was there a time when she accused you of something else?
There was a time when it was brought to my attention by Jake that she said that I had inappropriately touched Sophia sexually.
Okay. And before we get to that discussion that I certainly do want to talk with you about, were there, what kinds of, well, okay, I guess I'll let you talk about that. So Jake brings to your attention that his mother has said that you have inappropriately touched Sophia. And can you tell us what happens as a result of that?
So when Jake came to me and told me that his mom believed that I had touched Sophia inappropriately, I was also informed that because of that allegation, George wasn't comfortable with my living in the house with Bullvine, and then I needed to go somewhere else.
Okay. And who told you that George was not comfortable with you living there with Bullvine because of these allegations?
I think it was Jake.
Okay.
Okay. Let's unpack this because this is important. And my heart aches for this sweet girl because of that allegation. But it's important that we listen to this and because this is a glimpse, and we're only going to take a glimpse. We do not want to linger. We do not want to stay long into the inner workings of Angela Wagner's mind. The idea that her grandchildren were being harmed in that way is it's more than a thought. It is a fixation that Angela Wagner has. She is fixated on it. It consumes her. It is like all that she thinks about. And she never accuses, there's never any proof. It's just an accusation. And what they end up doing to her as a result of this accusation is, I feel awful for her. I feel awful for her. It's bad enough to be accused of that out of nowhere. Just all of a sudden, one day, here comes this accusation. And without, the thing of it is that they make the accusation and this is why it's so odd. This is why this line of thinking that Angela has is so odd to me. It's one thing for you to have that fear. Okay. When my children were growing up, I had that fear. I was always worried that somebody would do something to my children. Okay. And so I watched everybody who was around the children. I think that's normal. Okay. That is a normal level of fear. It wasn't something, but if I had ever suspected somebody enough to outright accuse them, I would be involving law enforcement. I would be involved, but that never happens. It's just, I don't even know how to explain it. I'm going to let Beth explain it to y'all. Here we go.
And can you tell us, did you ever have a conversation with both Jake and Angela about these specific allegations?
Yes.
And where did that conversation occur?
In the kitchen of the house next to Rita.
Okay. And can you tell us what happened during that conversation or what was said?
So it was sort of like a showdown. I was called into the kitchen. Jake said that he didn't believe I had done it, but that, I needed to explain myself because Angela believed that I had touched Sophia inappropriately. She was acting very high and mighty, so to speak. And I was very shocked. And I remember Jake questioning me very sternly, like, did you do this? And he laid it out very clearly to me that if I had done it, that that the right thing to do would be to create Lucille, a baseball bat from The Walking Dead, and string me up in the barn, beat me to death with the baseball bat, bulldoze the barn, burn it down, and hunt down and kill my family. And that if he didn't do it, his mom would do it. If his mom didn't do it, his dad would do it, or George would do it, or Billy, or, you know, he just kept saying any of them would be willing to do this because it would be the right thing to do.
And
I'm going to stop her right there. Because as traumatic as this testimony is, can you imagine, okay, under any set of circumstances, that somebody says this to you, okay? But under her circumstances, where this family has already been accused, and the rumors were swirling in Alaska, although not as, you know, it's not the same when you have rumors coming in Alaska, because there wasn't local people from Ohio there to be like, yeah, that's true, he a bad dude, right? So it was very easy for the Wagners to explain these rumors away and be convincing. And then they get back to Ohio, and not only do the rumors not stop, but the lies begin. The lies about where you first lie. The first lie is the address, right? The second, you know, and then there's conversations about what they would do to law enforcement. And then there's conversations about what they would do if they got arrested, and who would take the children, and then how would they break each other out of prison, and on and on and on and on and on, right? And at the crux of all of these conversations is the fact that they are suspected in murdering an entire family. So to put it into perspective, for her to be hearing this kind of this, you know, we're going to recreate Lucille, which is the bat from The Walking Dead. It's oh God, what is his name? It's on the tip of my tongue. Negan. It's his bat, and it's awful. Whatever. We're not going to get into that. Don't get off into the weeds, Jen. Stay focused. It would be nothing, right? If they can unalive 8 members of a family, and it's not even like they were 8 members of a family in a single home. That's one thing, but they're 8 members of a family spread over 4 different properties. And they've gotten away with it for the last 2 years. This would be nothing to them. Can you imagine how terrifying that would be to hear? And then on top of it, you're being accused of that kind of accusation never goes away. You know what I mean? Like, even if you didn't do it, the accusation sticks with you. It's just awful the way they did this poor girl.
what did you say or do at that time?
As soon as Jake said he didn't think that I had done it, I went to the bedroom, I packed my bag, I called my friend in Alaska, because he'd said he would help me if I needed help, the one that used to be a police officer, and I was making plans to leave the house immediately. I was afraid they were going to kill me.
So you called your friend, this is one of the persons that you lived with in Alaska?
Yes.
And was this the father of that home?
Yes.
Okay. The one that had married you?
Yes, the one who officiated.
Okay. And did you tell him what had happened?
I told him that Jake had threatened to murder me and that I was afraid he was going to, and that I needed to go somewhere.
Okay. And how did he respond to your phone call?
He thought I was overly emotional, and that I was overreacting.
Okay. And so what did he do at that point?
He, being my friend,
Yes, sorry.
he asked to speak with Jake on the phone to clarify what had happened.
Okay. And could you hear that conversation?
I could hear Jake's end of the conversation.
Okay. And what did Jake say?
I'm gonna open it up.
Yeah, let her speak. Let her get it out.
What was Jake saying?
Jake was saying that he hadn't meant it, that joking, that he was just using a figure of speech, basically.
All right, now look here. Okay. Anybody that's been on this channel with me for any length of time knows about that I make jokes. Okay. I have yet to make a joke like that ever. See, the thing about it is, if you're making an accusation like the one that they're making about her, there's no time for jokes in that moment. Okay. And also, Jake saying just using a figure of speech is absolutely preposterous. Okay. Jake would not understand the difference between past tense, future tense, past perfect tense. He couldn't tell you what a dangling participle was, and he couldn't tell you the difference between a verb and an adverb. Okay? There's no way that Jake is using some figure of speech. No, he was being a monster, because that's exactly what he is. And thank you, Judge Hine, because now, as Roro has pointed out, good old Jake has a chance at parole. Well done, Judge Hine. Way to go. Jackass.
And what happened after your friend spoke with Jake?
In detail?
Did you speak with your friend after he was done speaking to Jake?
Jake passed the phone back to me. My friend basically told me he didn't believe Jake had it in him to murder somebody, and that he'd been just exaggerating and speaking out of anger, basically, and just to kind of calm down.
Now look here. Oh, crap. Hold on.
He was, joking, that he...
All right. Sorry about that. I got too excited and too angry, and in my haste to read somebody for filth, I hit the wrong button, but I fixed it. Now then, where were we? Mr. Friend of Beth's over here, who called you and was in a panic over something that Jake had said, that Jake didn't have it in him to murder anybody. That's aged well, hasn't it?
It's just using a figure of speech, basically.
And what happened after your friend spoke with Jake?
In detail?
Did you speak with your friend after he was done speaking to Jake?
Jake passed the phone back to me. My friend basically told me he didn't believe Jake had it in him to murder somebody, and that he'd been just exaggerating and speaking out of anger, basically, and just to kind of calm down.
Yeah, women love that shit. Tell us to calm down. That's fantastic. Jerk.
At that point, what did you do?
None of us do, Roro. None of us
I continued to
do.
make plans to leave.
Good for you, Beth. Good for you, Beth. Don't listen to the men folk. Don't calm down. Get mad. Get angry and get out. Good girl.
After those allegations brought to everyone's attention via Angela, were there any restrictions as far as your interactions with the children?
Yes.
And what were those?
After that, Angela made this kind of rule where like I wasn't allowed to be in the same room with the children, unaccompanied. So if they would come into the room where I was, I would have to leave the room. Or if they would come up and try to give me a hug, I had to like get out of their embrace or something. And it was awkward because I didn't know how to behave. They were affectionate children, and we would have fun sometimes playing outside, and it was really hard to try to keep that distance.
And
I just want you guys to know that I fully intend to go. We're probably going to do her testimony in 2 parts, because I really think that it's important for you guys to hear how Jake and Beth got together, the things that he told her and stuff like that. Because I think part of the reason that I think one of the things that endeared Jake to Beth was the fact that he was a single father, and that his daughter had lost his mother in such a horrific way. And I think that she wanted to be there for Hannah and Jake's daughter and be a sense of security for her. And then here comes Angela Wagner, and Jake is just Jake. I mean, he's not a good dude. I don't give a rat's fat kneecap. He's not a good dude now, and he's not going to be a good dude 26 years from now or 32 years from now or 42 years from now. He is not a good person. Good people don't murder 8 other people. And Jake pulled the trigger on almost every single one of them. He looked Hannah in the face. She woke up. She saw him. He looked her in the face and he shot her multiple times. He's a bad person. He's a bad dude. You know? This isn't like, you know, he shaved his beard and he didn't rinse the sink up, you know, or he left the toilet seat up. Okay? No. Those are mistakes. Those are little idiosyncrasies that you can kind of look past. Okay? Or let's say you are a Pepsi person and he's a Coke person, or a Dr. Pepper person. I don't know. Like, those are the things that can be worked out, not this kind of shit. He's, ugh.
can you tell us, while you were living there, did you come to learn that your belongings had been gone through?
Yes, they would sometimes confront me about things in my belongings, so I was aware they were going through my personal items.
Okay. And can you tell us what were some of the things they confronted you about?
I'm sorry, say again. Yeah, we need to frame who it is and when it is we're talking about.
Who confronted you about these things?
In my memory, when the Wagners would confront me about something, it was not one person. It was usually Angela, Jake, George, as a group, coming together, asking me questions about things.
Now see, here we go again with Angela doing all the wrong things, confronting people, snooping through their stuff, but she never does it alone. Who's with her? Jake and George. And I got to say that there is a part of me that strikes me that George got enjoyment out of confronting Beth this way, the gang up. Like, don't listen. I know that George is trying to get his mommy's approval and all that stuff, yada, 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 whatever, but he's still a fucking monster too.
And do you remember some of those items that those 3 individuals would confront you about?
At one point, it was about a personal diary.
Okay. And again, was this personal diary something that was your owning that you did not intend for people to see?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell us what the general content of that particular diary was that they confronted you about?
So when stressed, I've often had the habit of writing, which is probably not the best habit to have, but just as catharsis. So I would sometimes just write my thoughts out. This particular diary was framed as sort of a dear diary, but instead of dear diary, it was dear granddaddy, because
Yes.
I had a close relationship
Neat noodle.
with my
She
grandfather.
met Jake in
And
Alaska.
Jake had at one point suggested writing to deceased relatives, which was odd, but
Okay. And your grandfather is in fact deceased, was in
Yes.
fact deceased at the time you wrote that. So it was instead of dear diary, dear granddaddy,
yes.
and then writing what you were thinking and feeling at that time.
Yes.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, Your Honor, if we could go ahead and take our morning break.
Yeah, it is a good time for that. We've been at almost 2 hours. So we'll be taking a 15-minute morning break at, let's see, at 10 after 11, the jury will assemble in the jury room. Be brought up from there by court personnel. While you're on your break, you're not to discuss this case and as to the facts of all. Going to what? Thank you.
I mean, you know what I was thinking about him? I was thinking the same thing, Neat Noodle. Women in Alaska usually have a lot of men to pick from. It's too bad she picked him. But I think that you know how it is. When we're a certain age, we like the bad boys, right? And he was, new. So I'm sure that added a little excitement to it. And unfortunately, he wasn't just like a bad boy. We're not talking about a guy that, might party a little too much, and whatnot. We're talking about like a murderer, like that's poor thing. She wasn't ready for these Wagners, not at all. Bless her heart. Poor Beth. Oh, this is a good question. Hang on, let me push pause. So Violet said, do you have the transcript of Jake and Angela's testimony? It was not audio or video recorded, correct? That's correct. I do not have it. The channel Pretty Lies and Alibis, I believe, I know that they have it. Just their their transcript, right? Just their testimony, Jake and Angela's testimony, was incredibly expensive. Like, they make the jail calls with Letitia Stout look cheap by comparison. So I don't have it, but Pretty Lies and Alibis does. And I don't know if they have, I know that they have Jake's. I don't know if they have Angela's, but I know that they have Jake's. Hold on a sec. Let me answer Roro. Okay. So all of the witnesses in this trial were given the option whether or not they wanted their testimony recorded in any capacity. So they had the option to choose, I don't want my face shown, which some law enforcement officers did choose that. It was just audio only, or they could opt out of it completely. No, babe, you are perfectly fine to ask. Like, I forget some of these, like when I'm talking about stuff, I forget not everybody sat through this trial with me. So, they even allowed Angela and Jake to opt out, and they both did. And the media objected, and they appealed Judge Deering's ruling on that. And it was, they said, and so there was like an argument, there were oral arguments back and forth about, why they objected to it. And the Jake's attorney said, well, he's in jail, and how it is in jail, snitches get stitches. And that just went all over me, because I thought it was absolutely preposterous. That is a thing in jail, right? We know this. It's not new information. However, at the end of the day, Jake had agreed to testify against his brother in 2021, a whole year. That's 365 days, for those of you who like to do math, of everybody who came in and out of that jail at any point in time, knowing that Jake, let me give you his full government name, Edward Jake Wagner, was a snitch. Okay? So what was going to happen if he was actually videoed? Or even if it was just audio? Not a damn thing. Whatever those prisoners are going to, or the people at the jail, or when he gets to prison, whatever they were going to do, they're going to do it anyways, whether he was recorded or not. It does not change the fact that they consider him to be a snitch. It was absolutely ridiculous. He had already pled guilty. He had agreed to a plea deal, and it made me so angry that he was allowed to opt out. He violated the entire Rhoden family's fundamental right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So therefore, he has no rights. The end. Hold on a minute, because I remembered something again. Sunday Doodle says, oh, he's a born-again prison preacher. He thinks, yeah, and he's still snitching. Because remember in his allocution where he said that, he basically took another person who was in jail with him, their quote-unquote confession, and he swore it was just between them. And then he went and blabbed it in open court in front of God and everybody. Yeah, you still a snitch, Jake Wagner. Shut up. You're a liar. Like, I don't care that he testified against his brother. Like, that to me, it's whatever, and I don't consider him a snitch. But I don't live by jailhouse rules either, or prison yard rules. I do, however, live by the rules of the playground, which dictate that he said he made a promise. He said he wouldn't tell anybody. It was just between the two of them. And then he decided to take his holier-than-thou butt right in front of God and everybody in his allocution statement and spill the tea. And therefore he is, in my estimation, by the rules of the playground, not only is he a murderer, but he is a lying liar face who tells lies. We can watch that again, Sunday Doodle.
I would like to show you, it's been marked as straight State Exhibit M1. And if you could go ahead and look at that, and first of all, tell me if that is what.
Let me tell you what it makes me want to do. I'm so annoyed with Jake. I want to find out exactly where Jake is going. I want to take exactly where, okay? And I want to put money on all of the prisoners' books who don't harm children, aren't murderers, obviously. Nobody that's in there for a violent crime, right? And I want to give them money so that they can buy up all the things on commissary that Jake likes to normally order, so that there's none left. So he can't have any of it. That's what I'd like to do. That's all I can do.
What is showing on the screen in front of you?
Yes, that's what is on the screen.
Okay. And can you tell us if you recognize that?
I do recognize it.
Okay. And what do you recognize that as?
One of my journal entries.
Okay. And can you go ahead and...
No honey buns or any other kind of fun commissary thing for Jake, ever.
Dear Granddaddy, the people I live with are alright, I guess. They are constantly yelling and hitting, and not one of them understands the concept or need for privacy. Even the most private of all human doings are open for discussion and comment in this family. It grates on my nerves. Also, nobody seems to understand basic ownership.
And can you tell us, is that one of the journal entries that you had written that was discovered by other people living in the home?
Yes.
And were you speaking about them in that journal entry?
Yeah, I was speaking about George, Jake, Angela, George, Jake, and Angela, yeah.
Everybody.
Showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit. Oh, actually, am I?
I'm blessed that she was speaking straight facts.
State's Exhibit MMM2. And if you could go ahead, that's just the first page, but if you could look at that and tell me if you recognize that, please.
Yes, I recognize it.
And
That's right, Irene. No ramen, no honey buns. And you know what? Let's not stop there. It's cold in Ohio during the winter, right? I would imagine that that makes your skin really dry. Let's buy up all the lotion too. So he has to go around with irritated, itchy winter skin. All the moisturizer gone. You get nothing, Jake.
can you tell us what you recognize that as?
Another one of my journal entries.
Okay. And again, styled the same way you started with Dear Granddaddy, as opposed to kind of Dear Diary.
Yes.
Okay. And could you go ahead and tell us what that says,
Do you mean read it?
please?
Yes.
Yes, Violet. Jake should never get two things that match. No, he should have to live like Craig. Man, this house ain't never got two things that go together. Got ham, ain't got no burger. Got peanut butter, got no jelly. Got cereal, ain't got no milk. That's exactly correct. That's exactly how yes. That's how I feel. Agreed. Motion carried.
Dear Granddaddy, I try so hard not to hate people. Proof of this is that out of my entire crazy big family, there are only 2 people I truly hate. But now, Granddaddy, there are 3. Daniel, Isaac, and Angela. I'm going to call her Ms. Angela because the name fits her. Anyways, Ms. Angela is horrible for all these reasons. 1.
Let it out,
She
Beth.
married
Put it in the
unwisely
book.
and believes all marriages destined to end like hers. 2. She has her fingers in my husband's pocketbook and makes exorbitant demands on his salary, holding her own quote-unquote gifts and help over his head like a club to emphasize her demands.
I'm telling you right now, that word exorbitant probably lit Angela's blood on fire because she had to go look it up. She had no idea what it meant. And then when she did look it up, she probably had to look up all the other, the adjectives until she could figure out what they meant. That probably went right. Oh God, I bet it went all over her. You let it out, Beth, honey. You put it in that book, babe. We are all behind you over here. Don't you worry about it.
3. She has more say over my life right now than I do because she controls my husband through his child. 4. She verbally abuses and yells insinuations at my husband, which he doesn't understand, but I do. 5. She dislikes and ridicules books.
And triple M3, if you can tell us what that is.
The continuation of the same diary entry.
Okay. And if you could go ahead and read us what that says.
6. Because she is a manipulative liar, she is teaching our daughter to manipulate and lie. 7. My husband would listen to her far rather than to me because she has raised his daughter thus far. She believes me to be a replica of Tabby and treats me as such. She has insinuated several times that she expects me to poison her. 9. She has repeatedly declared that she will see to it that Sophie will always prefer to be with her and never accept me as her mama. 10. She has threatened my husband with custody battles. 11. The most horrible thing is I have her totally within my power. All I would have to do would be to tell people she did it, to get Sophie away from her abusive mother, and I would get her a lifetime sentence like that. Only thing is, much as I hate the woman's guts, it would not be true. 12. She allows and encourages vulva easy. 13. She treats the children second, work first, and kids second.
I bet George got big mad at that. She encourages the boy obesity. I bet George is big mad about that one.
State's Exhibit Triple M4. Tell us what that is, please.
Continuing the same diary entry.
Oh, she had a plan to crush her. Good for you, Beth.
Do you want me to read it?
Yes, please. I'm sorry.
14. She keeps tabs on me, always watching and listening to see where I am.
Angela's like Roz, always watching. You didn't send in your paperwork last night.
15. Having to live in her house under her direct control and condescension.
Oh, there were so many words that poor Angela
And
had to
crush
look
her.
up in this.
1. Treat her only kindly and respectfully. 2. Try to become her friend. She's like Rhonda, so she really only lets working. I'm sorry, it's terrible. Working buddies? Okay, working buddies. Be nice because I'm bigger than her. 4. Once I have her trust and friendship, slam the relationship door shut in her face. She likes gifts, food, animals, gardening, money, 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 her kids, grandkids, working, cooking, favors, and hospitality. She is sensitive about her weight and appearance. She either was physically abused or was mistreated in her childhood. Basically, all bossies want minions.
Not wrong.
Ask us questions about that. But were the entries, the 4 different pages, 3 belonging to the entry, those were journal entries in your own handwriting, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And obviously, these are photographs of those items as opposed to the actual items themselves.
Correct.
And it appears that there was a blue-gloved hand holding those items. Did you ever take a picture of those with a blue-gloved hand?
I did not.
Okay. And that regarding that section.
Now, I'd just like to point out, just for, because I have to pause for commentary and fair use, but that, my friends, is what you call a church read. That is where you, for absolute filth, and unlike your friend Jen Lou over here who cusses, I significantly cut down my cutting, but I have cussed like 3, 4, 5, 10 times on the stream already. But that's where you read somebody for absolute filth and you use not a single cuss word. That is a perfect example right there in that journal entry in her green ink, plan to crush her of the church read. Good for you, Beth. Good for you. Don't ever let anybody steal your news.
The MMM2 through triple M4 was in the green ink. That was all one journal entry, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And again, was that written while you were living at the residence next to Rita Newcomb's home with Jake, George, and Angela?
It was.
And
Right
in
next,
fact,
right next
referring
to Rita, who knew all the things and didn't tell any of the things. And the only question she had, and the only thing she said two things. I'm sorry for the trouble. Am I going to jail? I got nothing for you, Rita.
them, or more specifically, Angela, her relationships with them.
Yes, I was.
Okay. And you talked about, she believes me to be a replica of Tabby and treats me as such. She's insinuated several times that she expects me to poison her. Can you tell us who is Tabby?
To my knowledge, Tabby was Tabitha, and she was George's either wife or ex-wife.
Okay. And what made you say that she believes you to be a replica of Tabby and treats you as such?
Angela, Jake, I need to remember George, talk about Tabitha in terms of her having been abusive, very strange. They said that she hurt Bovine, that she had knocked a child off of a table, that she tried to poison George, that she tried to poison Bovine. They made very crazy claims about her, and the longer I stayed in the house, I noticed they were making the same claims about me. They meaning Angela, and then they picked up the tail.
Okay. And just so we're clear, did you ever poison the children or anybody in that residence?
I certainly never did.
All right. I remember this coming up quite frequently in the other when the trial originally aired. The closed captions keeps picking it up, his name as Bovine. It is Bull, B-U-L-L, Bull Vine is his name.
Of food poisoning. I said poison, but I meant poisoning. Which time I had a food poisoner's license, which I do still, and I have never, to my knowledge, food poisoned anyone.
Okay. And did you ever touch Sophia inappropriately?
I did not.
And you indicated that she, quote, has her fingers in my husband's pocketbook and makes exorbitant demands on his salary, holding her own, quote, gifts and held over it like a club to emphasize her demands. Tell me what you mean by that.
I don't know how to say it in a brief form.
Okay.
May I explain?
Let me help you out here, Beth. She's a controlling, manipulative bitch. That's what that means. But please, you go ahead and away and explain it but for future reference, when you want to explain something short like that, you just say she's a manipulative, controlling bitch.
So, in a group of people who had no finances this way. So basically, different ones of them had different debts, meaning George, Jake, Angela, different people had debts, and they would other accountable to pay off these debts that they had. So almost as if it was an expectation, not like you could choose whether or not you wanted to. I understand giving somebody a gift out of the kindness of your heart, but it was more like, I helped you raise the children, so you better help me pay off this debt with this amount of money from your, that kind of thing. So what I meant by her holding it over like a club was basically raise, and you better help me pay for XYZ, get me this, get me that.
And believe you testified earlier.
The irony that the reason that she needs to help raise the children is because she's run off one of their mothers and murdered the other. Yeah, Angela. What a bitch.
Earlier, but would those kinds of discussions sometimes be the topic of conversation when they would have their family meetings?
Sometimes, yes.
And you indicated that over my life right now than I do because it controls my husband through his child.
So he had told me we were going to live by ourselves in our own house. As a family, him, me, Sophia. She would say that Sophie needed this, Sophie needed that, that she needed to be with her. Sophie wasn't comfortable, that Sophie didn't like me. Like, she would make these statements about what Sophie, and she would say, because of her alleged understanding of Sophia's character and needs, etc., that we couldn't do this or we couldn't do that. So we couldn't have a house of our own, or we couldn't take a trip, or I couldn't go see my dad because of Sophia. So that's what I mean.
Okay. And you made a comment that she dislikes books. Why did you make that comment?
Because I like to read, and sometimes I go in my room and read, and she would try to stop me, or sometimes I tried to read to the children and like it if I was reading to the children, and she would make comments like, I don't know why you like those books. I don't know why you're always reading those books. And so she clearly didn't have a high opinion of reading or read.
Okay. You indicated that husband would listen to her far better than to you because she's raised his daughter. Why did you say that?
For the same reason. So even though Sophia was nervous around her, maybe that she knew what was best for Sophia, and then would essentially make Jake do whatever she wanted.
Okay. And did you find, I guess I would ask you about Alaska, for instance, when it would be just you and Jake and Sophia, did you feel like you had a bond period?
I did feel that way. She seemed to be playing with me on the room, walking in the snow, just conversations. She seemed to enjoy my company in Alaska when it was just her and Jake.
Okay. And did you expect to ultimately, obviously, but ultimately, fill the role of being a mother to her, or a mother figure to her?
At the time, I hoped that that would be something that would be beneficial for Sophia, and so I did have that hope.
And you say in here that she's repeatedly declared that she will see to it that Sophie will always prefer to be with her and never accept you. Are those things she actually said to you?
Yes.
Okay. Then, of course, you indicate that you could harm her by telling authorities she was actually involved in these the murders that you knew they were being investigated for, correct?
Yes.
Okay. But then you comment that as much as you would like to her, as much as you dislike her, that would not be a true statement. Correct?
May I say more?
Yes, please.
Okay. So when I wrote that diary entry, it was right after the first time she accused me of food poisoning people. I had not been Wagners very long at that point, and so I still was basically going off of the story they had told me about the news media and everything like that. So yes, I did say that at that point in time.
Okay. You believe that they had not committed these offenses. Okay. You indicated that she keeps tabs on you, always watching and listening to see where I am. Tell me about that.
So if I would close a door, including the restroom door, if I walked outside, she would become very nervous and send someone to find me, whether it was Sophia or Bovine, come herself. She didn't like it if I was out of sight of her. She always wanted me within her sight lines. No privacy.
So describe for us what your daily existence was like in the home, especially when Jake and George were away.
When Jake and George were away, she would be alone most of the time. Didn't seem to want to really except to know where I was all the time.
Were there things that you did to try to carve out privacy for yourself or to get out of the household for periods of time?
Yes.
And what was that?
Well, there were two things. Freaks. One was I would take walks down the road. The Wagners did not want me to do this, but I was setting the boundaries. So they would meet with me as a group, George, Jake, Angela, explain to me why it was dangerous for me not to take walks by myself, and I would say, well, I need exercise for my health, or surely I can't stay in the house all the time. And so I would take walks down the road, sometimes to the cemetery because they were afraid of the cemetery, and sometimes to the library as a way of getting a little bit of privacy.
Good for you, Beth. You took their fear and you used it against them. You would go to the library because they were afraid of books, and you would go to the cemetery because they were afraid of the cemetery. Good for you taking your back. I'm glad to see that they didn't get all of her muchness out of her. Bless her little heart. Poor thing.
Okay. And when you said that Jake and George and Angela talked to you about that it's dangerous for you to take walks, what was the reason, or did they state a reason why that was?
There were multiple reasons. One was a fear of the news media trying to contact me. One was, I think they were concerned BCI following me or contacting me. Those are the two I remember.
Okay. And you indicated you would either go to the cemetery, or sometimes you would go to the cemetery or the library as well during these walks, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell, was there an attempt to kind of monitor you while you were walking to the library or other things?
She is young, Roro. When I come back on tomorrow night, I'll have all the details for you guys. But yes, she is young. I mean, she's Jake's age. Jake's not that old of a guy. I mean, he's when all this was happening, I should say, he wasn't, he isn't older now, but because that's kind of how time works. Like, I don't know why I stated that, like y'all don't know how time works. But yeah, I mean, she's young.
Yes, as soon as they knew I was leaving, Jake would call me and stay on the phone the whole time I was walking.
And would this be like driving the truck? He would
Yes.
call you and stay on the phone with you?
Yes.
Okay. Family dynamic when you were living there.
Sorry, I went to say something and hit the wrong button, but I was going to say, I think a lot of the reason Angela didn't like Beth is because I think she was afraid that would open up a better world for Jake. I mean, to me, it seemed like Angela, the boys were homeschooled, and I'll use the word homeschool, the absolute loosest term. Like they were not learning from a traditional curriculum. One of the games, George is going to testify to it, is when they would be on car rides with and out with Billy, their father, he would have them spot security cameras and stuff like that. So I feel like she wants to keep Jake, George, and the grandchildren uneducated so that they will forever be dependent on her, which is really sick.
Having those kinds of conversations with you and in front of you, was that something that you had experienced before living?
Oh, hold on. I went too far. My bad.
Library as well during these walks, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell us, was there an attempt to kind of monitor you while you were walking to the library or other things?
Yes, as soon as they knew I was leaving, Jake would come and stay on the phone the whole time I was walking.
Okay. And would this be like while he was driving the truck? He'd
Yes.
call you, stay on the phone with you?
Yes.
Okay. In your first journal entry, just a paragraph long, you indicate that even the most private of all human doings are open for discussion and comment in this family. Can you tell me what you meant by that?
Well, sometimes I was asked whether or not Jake and I had had sex or yeah, people were talking about this and their own sometimes.
Okay. And tell me about that. What kinds of things were discussed?
By whom?
I'm sorry. Who? Maybe we need to
Okay.
have some foundation for this question.
Who else would talk about this?
I remember Billy and George talking about going to see horrors.
Is that the words that they used?
I don't remember if they used the word whore, but that's how it's named anyway, like prostitutes.
Okay. And when you say they talk about going to see them, as in intending to go see them or having done that, or what?
I seem to remember being past tense.
And is having those kinds of conversations with you and in front of you, that's something that you had experienced before living with the Wagners?
I had not experienced that before.
And can you describe, as you talk about, well, here you say there's constantly yelling and hitting. Talk to me about that. Who is yelling? Who is hitting?
The yelling would be George, Angela, and Billy. The hitting was mostly Sophia and Bovine, because while the yelling was going on, typically they would be being almost completely ignored by everybody, and they'd be off in the corner, just frazzled and just going at it, releasing tension by hitting each other a lot of times. Yeah.
And when you say constantly, was that a common or recurring thing where they would be yelling?
Anytime people were all in together, there would be yelling.
You know, I wonder when she used whores and prostitutes, I wonder if it is because of the way that um, Billy Wagner and George Wagner spoke about women, if that's how they just referred to women, not that they were literal of the night. Do you know what I mean? Because I kind of feel like that's what was going on. Or maybe they did visit women of the night. I don't know. But I feel like George has a very derogatory view of women. And I think if I remember correctly, when he testifies, Angela Canepa gets him on that. Like it comes out. I just don't remember how it comes out. It'll come back to me. Don't worry. Here we go.
In addition, well, okay, so you indicated Jake and George and Angela confronted you about these items that we just reviewed. Things that 111 through 444.
I
Is that correct?
personally,
Were these the items that
excuse
they
me, Miss Canepa, I personally prefer the term hussy or What's the other word I like other than whore? Hussy. I like that word. I have another one that I use, but I can't think of it right now. I think I'm not here. Here we go.
Confronted you about?
Yes.
Okay. And can you tell us what you were, well, first of all, did you give them permission to or show them these things yourself?
I didn't give them permission and I did not show them.
Okay. And can you tell us what they had to do with these items once they confronted you with them?
Well, first they asked me what was the purpose of it, and I said I was just angry writing because of the stress and then it was relieving stress. They told me that was extremely dangerous for me to do. What if the police or BCI found it? And I say they, I think it was Angela, and I feel like George was nearby, possibly Rita as well, but I don't remember that.
Okay.
They said it was dangerous for me to write because the media police or somebody might get a hold of what I had wrote. And so...
And look at, they were
they
right.
asked if I would the journal.
By the way, just because they were, you know, even a broken clock is right twice a day. So that doesn't mean anything. But I mean, she had to get it out, bless her heart.
And flush it down the toilet. And saw to it that I did.
And when you say they saw to it that you did, where did you actually burn the journal?
So Jake had a
Ooh,
lighter,
tart's a good one
and
too,
we were-
neat.
I think we burnt it in a sink or outside, I can't remember which. And then we took it and flushed the ashes down the toilet.
Okay, so they confront you about these things. You also come to learn that they had other items of yours, other personal items of yours, or personal documents, I should say.
I was not aware that they had my personal documents. I highly suspected that they had my personal documents because a bag of mine was lost in transit between Alaska and Ohio, which contained all of my personal documents.
Okay. And just wanted to share.
Well, of course they had her personal documents, bless her heart. This girl looks like she has a credit score of 800 or better. And you know that the Wagner family had a combined credit score of 275. Of course they had her personal documents. They're probably taking out lines of credit in her name, poor thing.
The documents, I'm going to put these up on the screen because they do have some personal identifying information.
Ooh, I like her too.
Showing you
Her.
within exhibit triple M7. Can you tell me if you recognize that?
Yes, I recognize this.
And what is that?
It's an application for a social security card.
And was that as a result of your name change, as a result of marrying Jake?
It was both as a result of the name change and as a result of having lost the actual card through loss of that bag.
I also
And then
like Tramp.
States Exhibit triple M8.
It was to be the same document but zoomed in,
Okay.
like a closer image.
And States Exhibit triple M9.
This is a photograph of the name change order my mother created after my father divorced.
And States Exhibit MT.
This is a photograph of the marriage certificate.
And can you tell us what date you were married?
4th, 2018.
Triple M10. Regarding the first items that I provided to you, your Social Security application and the name of your mother's, were those items that had been in in that bag that you talked about that got lost in transit from Alaska to Ohio?
The change order was the marriage certificate was in the bag. The application for the Social Security card was not in that bag, as far as I recall.
Okay. Again, did you give any of those personal items to the Wagners?
Not that I remember. It is possible that Jake had them transport back and forth between the post office at one point.
Okay.
But I seem to remember being there when that happened. So.
Okay. And you already testified that on your wedding night, they asked for that information, or some of that information, correct?
Yes,
At that time, did you give him documents or just the information?
just the information.
Okay. Before I move on,
Okay, I want to stop there. And the reason I want to stop there is because I want to get her testimony from earlier in the day. Because I don't know if you guys caught it at the end. Jake on their wedding night had asked for some personal information of Beth's. And I remember, I kind of vaguely remember that testimony, but not all the way, and not enough to even talk with any level of intelligence about it. So I'm going to stop us there for tonight. Go back and play that testimony about how Jake and Beth got together, because it's important. And so that's where I'm going to stop for tonight. But I do want to say thank you guys so much, all of you, for being here. And I appreciate it so very much. Thank you for the support. Thank you to the mods. You guys are all fantastic. And the chat makes me laugh. Like, it's hard for me to even concentrate on what the testimony is, so I can like talking points with you guys. I'm over here laughing at the chat. Like, who asks that kind of first of all, who asks that anyway? Okay, but who asks that on your wedding night of all nights? Who does that? Well, apparently Jake Wagner does, because apparently now they're married, even though none of the paperwork has been filed. So like, it doesn't, all they have at this point is a marriage license that's been signed. It hasn't been filed with the proper authorities, as it were. So it is pretty much useless. But literally, I really feel like, if I remember correctly, they did not spend their wedding night together, if I remember correctly. And if I remember correctly, there's some kind of kerfuffle, and you can bet that Angela's dirty little paws were all over that kerfuffle that caused them not to spend the night together in the same room that on their wedding night. And I'm sure it's because Angela had Jake getting all of the personal information so that they could go ahead and open up lines of credit and stuff in her name. Golly, these people are a piece of work. Ugh. All right. Anyway, thank you guys all for being here. I will be back tomorrow night, and we will finish. We'll just continue with Tabitha's testimony, and we'll go back and listen to the parts that we missed where I just talked about 2 seconds. Anyway, thank you guys. Have a great night. Stay warm, stay safe, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye.
Cause it's Friday, you ain't got no job, and you ain't got shit to do. Well, fuck you.
No malicious intent or effort was towards it.
No malicious.
Finish her!
It's on the back of the
2 minutes later.
We all do a little mad sometimes.